Right, moving on. Thank you for our speakers so far. We're now onto a section called Hybrid Carnivals. I don't know about you, but my life seems to be totally hybrid these days. But I've learned a lot from it, and it's actually turned out to be quite useful, and that it certainly kept me in work anyway. But I've been involved in some hybrid carnivals myself. I've been working with Hackney Carnival, and Hackney Carnival 2020 was all on film, and Hackney Carnival 2021 was live workshops but not a carnival parade, so we weren't on the road. So very gradually, I think local authorities are getting the confidence to put carnivals back on the road again. Fingers crossed. So hybrid carnivals are a way forward to increase access, and we have here Deborah Goatley Birch, doctoral researcher, Solent University, doing a PhD in interdisciplinary art. You are an interdisciplinary artist from Southampton. You told me last night your family go back to the 16th century in Southampton. Yeah. That's an interesting fact. And you're currently... No, she doesn't. You're currently working as an artist in residence with a focus on participation, collaborating with schools, charities, community arts programs to promote cultural visibility and accessibility. I hope I haven't just given away your first part of your speech. So
I'd forgotten I'd written that piece, so I'm really glad that you put it in.
Jolly good. And welcome back, I hope, to our online colleagues as well. Over to you.
Hi. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. It's really important having events like this, and particularly hybrid events like this. So as Deb said, and I seem to collect Debbies. I think Debbies attract other Debbies. I work with adults and children who are disabled or have a learning disability. I'm a mother of 4 children. I'm autistic. I was just talking to Sarah about living with chronic pain as well. And 2 of my children are also autistic, which is quite common. For because there are known genetic links in parentage, so it's very common. And I'm just going to put it out there that if you have a family with autistic children in it, one of the parents may also be autistic, and that's really important to bear in mind before I start. So people have been describing what they're wearing, and I made a note of what came to my head about my outfit, and I think I look like a dark chocolate chip mint ice cream sundae today, if that's a good artistic interpretation of my clothing. So lots of mint and green, greeny mints going on with the black, yeah. I first came into contact with the new Carnival company. I was invited to be part of the Mayflower 400 project, which we had here in Southampton, which was incredible. And we were due to work together as an artist practitioner. I was offered the opportunity to take part in some workshops where I would learn more about inclusivity, more about how to work and plan workshops so that I'm really aware that I'm making the work that I'm doing accessible to others. I'd like to think of myself as an expert by experience around autism, being autistic, having 4 children. We've had a lot of experiences, and you really do find you carve your own niche as a parent and as an individual who is autistic, with many complex planning and kind of contingency planning, and also the ability to be able to say, right, that's it, we just aren't doing that today. You have to be flexible. And that's one thing that I found as an individual, and with many organisations still that I work with now. So I work as a freelancer with lots of organisations. organisations, you know, disability organisations, you know, where that flexibility still isn't possible. And some of that does come down to funding, but some of it comes down to flexibility of thought. And I think that's one thing as an artist that I find when I'm working and when I'm researching, I am constantly regenerating what I do, my approach, and it tends to be based on individuals. So I'm always collecting new ideas and learning from the people that I'm working with. So it's a real collaborative process. When I met with the new Carnival company, it was online. It was at the beginning of COVID, and it was wonderful because the lasting statement left by Katie on screen was fear of the unknown. And what that experience did for me, it allowed me and gave me access to those workshops. I can't describe how easy it would have been for me to say, I'm not doing it if it wasn't online. There would have been so many questions, so many anxieties that I would have had, not just about as an individual attending, but also with my children and the planning that goes into that as well, for me to be able to do it. And more recently, the pain that I'm in has become worse, and actually that's now an additional barrier, but it's never the thing at the forefront of my mind. The thing at the forefront of my mind is planning and contingency, and it becomes part of everyday life. And I know that that's not just the case for autistic people. I know it's the case for carers and their families, but also for people who have other disabilities and other hidden disabilities. There's a hell of a lot of work that goes into planning and getting there, and the fear of the unknown can be enough to just make it not worth doing. It's way too stressful. So even if the outcome looks wonderful and amazing, it's not sometimes just not worth the effort to get going. So breaking down those barriers, certainly using the hybrid model, was something I'd never really considered as a practitioner, as a parent. And COVID forced us all to do that. It forced us to work differently. It forced us to communicate differently. And actually, for me, that online communication had always been something that had popped up occasionally at conferences, you know, a global conference, but it seemed to be confined to those sort of areas. Never before had I realised what doors it would have opened for me in terms of confidence, the ability to be able to get to know a group of people that I'd never met before, understand who they are, for them to know me, for me to be in my own space, in my own home with my things, the things I need. I'm prepared, you know, and I can do that thing where you show up and everything looks like great, like you're on it, and the chaos that's left behind isn't seen. I was talking to someone about paddling swans last night. I can't remember who it was, but when things go wrong, and there's, but the surface looks great. It's like, you know, you go for it and you get on and you do it. And I think that that's one thing I found working online and with the new Carnival company is I was given the ability to really slowly, almost like exposure therapy, get a chance to know the people, feel comfortable and confident with what I'm doing. It makes a massive difference. I think from a parental perspective, the challenges are different. So I'm really, really good with my children at sort of going and recceing things first for them, going to see what things are like for them first. And I think one of the things that then I don't do is necessarily for myself think about that. So there are situations I've been in as a parent where I've gone to an event or gone to a very busy outdoor event, been with my children, but then felt myself going into meltdown quite quickly. And that can be really scary if you've then got your children there as well, who you're responsible for. And I'm so lucky I've got a really great support network of friends and family around me. But even so, it's so frightening. And it's those little things that would make you just not bother wanting to go, because it just seems like too much of a nightmare. And I think a lot of things that it's around trust. So I think being able to trust the organisation, the people that are creating that event, because I think a lot of disabled people go through life just not, you end up just not trusting. You found your own way to deal with something, you found your own coping mechanisms, and you are clinging on to them, like, because it's having that trust in the organisations that they really understand and that they get you and that they've done their research. And from working with charities, disability charities, I always think that it's not necessarily the charity itself that has the information, but the service users of that charity. And one of the things, as somebody that works sort of freelance, I see it quite a lot, is that often there's a lot of thinking going up at the top, and there's a lot of people demanding services at the bottom, but there's not a lot of linked up conversation happening. So I was listening to you talking this morning, and I was thinking about how many local charities that there are in this area, how many parent forums that there are in this area, how many sort of small community groups, even on Facebook, that could all be drawn in and could all be consulted and all know their local area better than anybody else because they have to live there. And it's talking about maybe not for 600 years, you don't, but you live there, you know your local area, you know your accessible routes. I know where I park. I know where I park when I'm on my own. I know where I park when I'm with my children. And I know that if I'm going to an event in the city, I know who I need to talk to and speak to find out what it's going to be like for us. And the worrying thing, I suppose, is that it's different for every single person. I can't speak on behalf of other autistic people. And I can't speak on behalf of other autistic parents or carers. And I can't remember who was saying, but it affects the whole family. Was it yourself, Katie, who was saying it does affect the whole family? My other children have been affected by us not being able to go to things, not being able to go on holiday, not being able to make trips out, sometimes at the last minute because something's gone wrong. And you get very, very protective around that. So it's a breath of fresh air when you do meet, organisations that are really engaging and moving and thinking progressively about their practice. One thing that I really, really enjoy about events is getting together and meeting new people, being able to try out new things, being able to feel like part of the community. And particularly with Carnival, that is one of the spaces where that should be able to happen. I started looking at Carnival when I was doing my research when I very first started. I started to look at the tradition of Carnival and what it meant and what it was for. And it seemed to be a space where people could try things out. It could be something different. It's a space where you can be unconventional, where you can go against the grain. So it seems ridiculous that would only, be accessible for a very, very small piece of society. So I think there is a lot of work to be done around being able to connect and consult with individuals and individual lived experience. I think that's really important, as well as language. So we all know that language is very important. It can change a perspective, it can reframe something for somebody, it can dictate a narrative, it can take a narrative away from somebody. But that language actually isn't really that important to a parent who has a child who is having a meltdown and you can't find anywhere to go, and you're stuck and maybe you need to go home. All of that language means absolutely nothing at that point. So I've often been in meetings where there's a lot of time wasted talking about grammar and the way things, and although it is important, I think with things like this, when they're community based, it's really individuals that count and that matter. And it is hard work. It's really hard work. We found it hard work when we first started to do our workshops online, because it was a new experience for all of us. And but out of that came the confidence then for me to be able to go out and teach workshops and repeat the things that I'd learned and actually put them into practice. And I'd never have done that, and I wouldn't have been here actually if we hadn't have had that online working opportunity, which came out of something awful out of COVID. But also, like Sarah said, for me, it was just the best couple of years of my life in terms of networking, communicating, building my career back up, having some time for the world to stop so that I could say, hello, I'm here too, and I'd really like to do this. And this is now really accessible for me. So I think going forward, it would be ridiculous for people not to have a hybrid event, because you are excluding, huge members, huge communities in your population, and you're actually doing yourself a disservice, because you could have a much more enriched experience, the true carnival experience, which is about community and about difference and about celebration and about being able to step outside of your comfort zone and try something new. And I think by not making that extra effort, it's so simple. And I think we need to keep pushing for it. One thing I think would be really sad is that legacy of COVID, all of those changes, that new normal that was talked about, that gradually seems to be fizzling away. It would be so sad if that doesn't stay within society for us. I'm not sure how much time I've got left, probably about 1 minute. So yeah, so I'm gonna wrap up just on a positive note, because as I said, working with the new Carnival company, that was a really wonderful experience for me, and it really was a bit of a game changer. And I would say on top of that, there have been some fantastic things that came out of COVID. And there's a festival called All in the Mind Festival, which happens in Basingstoke, a local festival. That went online. That became a hybrid event. And that was because of COVID. And they did an incredible thing where you could go and visit and walk around the festival. And I thought, imagine if I could do this with all festivals, with all carnivals. I'm going to the Isle of Wight Carnival soon, and I thought, why can't they have all of that information on there? Why do I have to wait till like 2 weeks before to get to the app, so that then I can do my virtual walk round and then I can see where all my points are? Because I want to know now, because if anybody else in this room has a disability, you'll know that, you're thinking about it as soon as you've got the ticket. Maybe you're thinking about it before you got the ticket, but you're certainly not thinking about it 2 weeks before you go or when it gets advertised. That would be way too late. So I think there are some really excellent models out there that we can learn from, and there are people doing it. It's just going out there and looking for them. I hope that's been enough information really about hybridity. It's a big subject and a lot to unpack in 20 minutes. So.
But you did it so well. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It was an important personal testimony of a lived experience, which is what we all need to learn from. So thank you very much, Deborah, for that. I don't know if you've got any questions, but it is lunchtime, and we're all